Hey everybody, John here, the Midnight Paint and Body channel. Okay, on this video, we're going to be replacing 2014 to 2018 GM truck rockers and cab corners. And it's my first time. So that's right guys, we are on to the new style trucks, rusting out now. Now, you've probably heard me say it. I've always said all of these trucks, no matter what brand it is, 10 years old in this country, they're pretty much always rusted through. That's just kind of a rule of thumb. 10 years, you have rust holes. Obviously, that's probably different if you live in a dry climate, but here in British Columbia, that is pretty standard. Now, this particular truck, 2014 if I remember right. Now, this is a work truck. It's a farm truck. It gets driven in the muck and the bad roads and everything else, and it's got 500,000 kilometers on it. So it's been well used. For you guys in the States, what's that, a little over 300,000 miles. So, but as we always say around here, and as my customers always say, it's $100,000 to replace one of these now, so it's worth spending a few bucks on them. So we'll do our real quick walk around. So first off, you might look at that and say, oh, the rockers look okay. I mean, yeah, they don't look terrible, but there you go. I can tear it apart by hand, so they're rotten. I'm also putting a front fender on this side. Now, again, you might look at that and think, well, why don't you just patch the bottom? These fenders are not cheap. An aftermarket fender's like 800 bucks. But I find with any of this stuff, by the time you see this, I mean, yeah, you could patch that, but then the next thing you know is rusting through here or here or here. It's just kind of seems to be the way they are. Now, these folks are keeping this truck. It's not like they're just trying to patch it up to flip it, so we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it right, but we're not gonna carry it away. They, like I said, it's a work truck. It's still gonna be a work truck. So we're gonna do rockers, cab corners. We are actually doing this driver's door, just because it's got a bunch of peeling around that door handle, but that's just paintwork basically. So let's wander around to the other side. And incidentally, it is actually the Saturday after Christmas today, but I needed to get back to work. I actually took all last week off, which is very rare for myself, being self-employed, to take a whole week off work. So nice little break. Nice to be back, even if it is Saturday. So this side, as you can see, is a whole lot worse, but you can see we've got a big gouge in the bottom of this door, so, and this rocker is completely split open. So I would say this thing has had, maybe with these boards on, maybe a stick or something has come up from underneath and taken out this rocker and damaged the door, so that's why this one is so much worse. But still is what it is, not a big deal. Fender, you know, when I looked, well, yeah, this fender's still solid. So, and then we'll still clean up that fender for them. Now, again, they didn't want to get carried away, but I should maybe ask them about that dent in the door. So yeah, so unfortunately it has a canopy on it. It didn't have a canopy on it when I did the estimate. So, I mean, yeah, I take pickup boxes off myself all the time, but canopies are a pain in the ass because, you know, especially on a truck like this, I mean, you pretty much need 3 other guys to lift the damn thing off. But fortunately, I have a truck with an 8-foot box. I have my canopy on a stand over by the house where I can actually back up to it, load it on and off myself. So I went out early this morning, put my canopy on my truck so I can take this over and put this canopy onto my canopy stand. course, this truck sits... This thing must be lifted. This thing sits higher than my truck. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'd say this is a good 4 or 5 inches higher than my own truck, so... But anyway, that shouldn't be a big deal. Let's get on to having a look at our parts. So as I said, this is my first time doing this body style. I don't expect it's going to be any different than any other truck, really, putting rockers and cab corners on, but you know, they're all kind of the same process. But what we have is, so this will be the left side, RRP 4496 is your part number. Passenger side will be an RRP 4497. Left front fender. What is this guy? GM 1240387PP. Just in case you need the aftermarket number. Warming up. Radiant heat goes to 9 million before it settles down to a bearable temperature. So cab corners. I'm going to give you the part numbers. RRP 4504 and RRP 1474. That's strange that those are such different part numbers. Yeah, RRP 4504 for the driver's side. Oh, and RRP 4505 for the passenger side. That... Okay, yeah, that's the wrong sticker. That says our upper wheel arch, that 1474 number, so that's just got the wrong sticker stuck on the outside. There's a correct sticker on the inside. But something I realized once I got these parts, and this is actually really cool. Look at these rocker panels. The cab corner is part of the rocker. Now, it only goes up yay far, where if you've got the cab corners, they go up quite a bit farther, but we shouldn't need that. Now, I don't know why they haven't always made all of them like that with the integrated cab corner. Well, but I guess like the 99 to 06, 07 style, it was separate, where these are actually stamped one piece. So, that is kind of nice. That's definitely going to save us some work, so hopefully I can return those. I'll be able to take them off the customer's estimate for sure. So my first plan of attack here, as soon as I finish babbling, I'm going to unbolt that canopy. I'm going to drive it around, try and get it off the truck. Then I'll move some stuff around, get it in down there, and we'll get the box off. So I'm going to get going, and I will bring you guys back when there's something to see. Alright, well that actually worked out okay. I lucked out in that I was able to slide the canopy off of this thing right onto my canopy rack that I built for my own truck. Just meant I had to put my canopy on my truck, but not a big deal. And the box actually came off nicely. A couple of unexpected things. I always check to see if these things have a fifth wheel hitch when I estimate them. And for whatever reason, I didn't realize this one had a hitch. But not a biggie, just a few extra bolts. Luckily, they all came out nice. And actually, all the bed bolts came out of this like butter in this truck. So for whatever reason, they were not locked in at all. So that was good. I might, you know, I usually take these outside and pressure wash the frame. just because it's something I would do if it was my own truck. But man, this thing is really thick. You know what, I'll do it anyway. I'm gonna take this out, clean it up a little bit, get it back inside, and we'll get started on tearing the cab down. Well, it's Monday morning here, guys. Been a day since we filmed on this last. I pulled it apart on Saturday. So, obviously, bed is off, doors are off, fender is off. We're going to get cutting into the rocker shortly. The only thing I have left to take off is this running board. Now, if you're familiar with this style of board, somewhere. Of course, these are the 3 body bolts, the 3 cab mounts is what these are attached to. Now these body bolts, these cab mounts, they're on bushings. They don't need to be, I mean, they need to be tight, obviously, it's holding the cab to your frame, but they don't need to be frickin' Herculean tight. So this is what I'm up against. The old Blue Point impact won't even budge them. So I have got a 3/4 inch ratchet with a long breaker bar. And I can't frickin' budge these things. So this is one of the joys of working on this kind of stuff. Oh yeah, something's gonna break there before that comes loose. I also heated it just with the MAP gas torch. But yeah, that is not friggin' coming off there. So whoever put those on, probably some heavy duty mechanic with his friggin' 3/4 inch impact. So those are not ever coming out. They're gonna break before they come out. When you break one of those cab mount bolts, you're in for a world of hassle. What a friggin' pain in the ass. We'll try the other 2, but hopefully I can undo the running board from the mounts. It's a pain in the ass to do it that way, then you've got these mounts hanging in your way while you're working, but I've done it before, so that's where we're at. Whew. Yeah, I'm gonna keep fighting with this thing, see where we end up. I got the running board off. Just gonna show you guys one more thing. So, like I said, I mean, I was able to take them off, leaving these hanging out, which isn't the end of the world, but it just sucks having stuff in the way. But I don't want to risk breaking those bolts. But now, it's always kind of the case with this aftermarket garbage. So, aftermarket running boards, I mean, sure, they're good quality, but you see the way they're designed open? These things are packed full of mud. I bet you that's at least 50 pounds. So, you know, now you've got one of these friggin' running boards hanging off each side. That's a good 50 pounds full of wet mud. It's just not good for stuff. Not to mention adding all that weight to your vehicle. But anyway, just something to look for. I'm gonna carry on, get these door openings closed up, and we can finally start cutting. Well, guys, set up my new rocker panel to kind of get an idea where we're gonna cut. Now, I had a hell of a time getting parts for this truck. My regular supplier didn't have them, ended up getting them from a different supplier. They took forever. I had to keep pushing back the customer. And I ordered the wrong parts. So this truck is an extended cab. I ordered parts for a crew cab. Now these modern trucks actually screw me up more often than not. I'm used to an extended cab truck having, you know, the small back door swings open backwards or whatever. Where these newer ones, they have 4 real doors. They're just smaller doors in the back. Well, you can see my rocker panel. It's the same up until there. As you can see, the crew cab obviously has a much bigger door opening than the extended cab. So, totally on me. I absolutely ordered the wrong parts. I thought, yeah, it's a crew cab. After I looked at the truck, that's what I ordered. They are wrong. I just phoned. There are no extended cab rocker panels they're in the system, but they're no stock anywhere. Can't get them. So, I think what we're going to be doing, just set up so you guys can see, so you don't think I'm crazy, what I'll probably do anyway. So these are identical, except for the extra length. So I can fit them up to the front. They are bang on. Fit it up to the back. It is bang on. So basically what I'm going to have to do is just cut a section out of the middle. Not the end of the world. I mean, obviously it's not the best way. It's a little more work. But I can shorten that up. I can do it while it's off, so then I can get it at the backside and finish it and treat it nicely so that it is not going to be a problem in the future. But yeah, I just thought I would show you guys that so you don't make the same mistake I did. I've actually, this happened to me a lot. It used to happen to me a lot on Dodge trucks because I work on so damn many Dodges. They would mess me up with their, because they don't call them extended cab and crew cab, they're whatever, mega cab and club cab, and so Dodge uses different terminology, so they always messed me up. So I actually did make mistakes like this a few times on Dodges, but now I don't anymore because I know better. At least now I know better on these ones. So, damn it. But it's not the end of the world, fortunately. If I could have got parts for tomorrow, I would have got the correct parts, but they're just not. There's none. I can't get them. So this is what we have. So this is what we're going to use. So I'm going to carry on and start cutting. I think I will. First, we'll just cut the old rocker off. Now what I'm going to be doing here. So we're going to see about how far we're going up. So you see these spot welds in here. These all need to be drilled out. You can use, everyone does them different. You can use spot weld cutter. Lots of guys like to use the little air sander, belt sander. I prefer just to use a big drill bit, and I just drill halfway through. You don't want to drill through the back panel because we're going to be welding to that back panel. It's just what works best for me, guys. I know I have lots of guys say, oh, you should be using a belt sander. I don't find the belt sander faster, and it's much more expensive buying those belts than just sharpening a drill bit a couple of times. And you know, I can do 100 trucks with a drill bit. So anyway, guys, I'm going to start drilling those, and then we'll start cutting. We'll get this rocker off, then we'll start fitting this one. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, just a minor setback. So let's get going. here's our first look inside. So our inner rockers are nice and solid. We'll clean up stuff like this and treat it before putting new panels on. There's a little bit of foam in there that we'll need to clean out prior to welding. I always trim kind of small because I don't know. This is my first time, like I said, doing this style of truck. So we'll decide when we get to it whether we'll overlap, 3/8 of an inch, or we're gonna trim for a nice fit and butt weld. We'll decide that when we get to it. So as you can see, the rocker didn't look too bad on this side, but it is obviously very rusty. All of these plugs, I've already pulled one out. We're gonna want those for the new rockers. So this is one of those things where if you have one of these trucks, guys, and it's not rusty, you can pull these plugs out. You can clean in there the best you can, whether it's just spraying up in there with a garden hose or an air line. Let it dry really, really good, and then spray some kind of oil or rust converter or whatever in there. I like just using oil personally, but it is something you can do before it gets to this. So I'm going to continue a little trimming here, and then I'll move on to that little back section. So a little thing I usually mention on these, I didn't think of before. Once you start cutting into your truck, car, whatever you're working on, keep in mind there's usually panels in the backside. You don't want to be taking a thick blade and cutting way in there to where you're cutting inside panels. So I always just try and cut shallow, so I know I'm only cutting the outside sheet metal, because we don't want to be cutting apart our inner structure, because we're not replacing that. So we're ready to start fitting our new rocker panel. So this is the part where I need to take a brand new expensive part and cut it in half. So, not a real big deal. What I'm going to try and do is cut it so that we still have the proper spacing of these holes. So I think I'm going to cut here, because I'm going to be cutting out probably. Maybe I should measure first. How's that for a concept? So we're going to be cutting out roughly 8 inches. So I just wanted to pick a good spot to cut. We're not cutting our section out yet. So I've just got kind of a rough idea. So I'll cut this, then we can fit the front half, and then we can just trim our back half until it fits. So easy breezy. Let's see if it's going to fit, or if we've just destroyed a really expensive part. Woohoo! All right. So yes, that fits nicely. Let's just have this will fit in there. Perfect. So, as you can see, we're just going to need to cut our section out once we get to where we're happy. Just a little extra cutting and welding, but not a big deal. Like I said, turned out that the extended cab parts are non-existent anyway, so Actually, this little mistake probably working in our favor, even though I got the wrong parts. Had I known I couldn't get the right parts in the beginning, I probably wouldn't have brought the job in. So hey, it's a win-win. It's going to work out. So these panels appear to fit really nicely. So I've got it just basically clamped in place, kind of overlapped over the metal here and here. But you can see we line up nicely with that factory hole. This panel is up just a hair, but we are overlapped on the metal. So once we cut that out, it'll bring it down to where it needs to be. We're fitting really nicely along that bottom flange. It's actually perfect. It is bang on. So what I'm going to do from this point is basically just mark where our new panel wants to live. I think what we will do is cut it and do a nice butt match, so no overlapped metal. I prefer to do it that way, but sometimes it just works out nice having a little bit of overlap too. So whatever works for you, whatever you're comfortable with, if you're taking this on. Same up here. And once you do start trimming stuff, it's always best to trim on the big side, big side of the line for sure, because sometimes once you take this off, cut it and start fitting it again, things are going to be thrown off a little bit. So it's best to still have a little extra metal and then just trim until you've got it right. It's easier to cut more off than it is to put some back. So I've got our front section of our rocker panel all fitted up, just loosely clamped in place. So I've got everything trimmed up, so we're going to be just butting the metal up, just edge to edge with no overlap. Just moving on to our rear section. So I trimmed a little bit off of here. I just didn't like the way it fit up into there much, so I trimmed a bit off just to find a little better fit. So I have marked our front section of the rocker where I'm going to cut that off. So this is what we're using here. And then I'm just going to do a marking on our existing sheet metal. Looks like that edge is going to need to be hammered in a little bit, but we can fine tune that as we're welding. So I'm going to cut, again, I'm going to cut kind of big in there, and then we'll fit this up a little bit at a time. So I've got our rocker panel welded back into one piece, so you can see the inside. I just quickly ground off the outside. So I've got everything cleaned up. What I'm going to do now is just brush on a coat of rust inhibitor paint to all of our inners. In this case I'm just using gray Krylon because it's what I have. I usually use black, doesn't matter because it's completely covered. I have masked the flanges that we're going to be welding to, just so we don't have to clean all that off again for the welding, but that'll all be coated in weld-through primer before the panel is put on for the last time. So I'm going to go ahead and just brush paint all of this stuff gray. I'm going to actually brush the entire inside of the rocker as well. I just figure whatever extra we can do for the longevity of these repairs, I always try and do it. It's that, yeah, a little bit of paint. It's not that expensive and it only takes a few minutes, so it's worth doing. Right, so that copper coating is just copper weld through primer, so that just gives a little something on there for when you sandwich panels together, and you can obviously weld through it. You don't want to be trying to weld on this crap, it's pretty thick. So that's all coated. I mean, that's, like I always say guys, it's just an extra step that is gonna help preserve it. It's not any magical thing. It's not going to last forever, but it's going to make it last longer than it would without doing anything. You know, just knocking all the loose rust off and kind of coating it, sealing it up. So I think while this cures, I'm going to go prep up the inside of the one new fender we have for this truck and try and get some paint on it today. So that way, I think if I can finish up this side tomorrow, get it all welded together, I can maybe just spot in just a little bit of red at the front. I can actually get that fender back on the truck, because I can't put the battery or anything in this side without the fender being there. I mean, I could wire it up or something, but just easier to put the fender back on, and then it takes that out of the way. And we will have to fit the doors too. That'll be whenever we get back to this rocker. But I don't want to weld this thing solid without actually putting the doors back on the truck, so that we know that our gaps and everything are going to be good. I just finished up spraying up the fender inside, so that'll be ready to put on tomorrow whenever I'm ready for it. So let's go back to the truck and start fitting rocker panel. So our paint on the inside here, yeah, it's all right. Still a little sticky, but that doesn't matter. Let's start fitting up our shortened crew cab rocker panel. So I think probably what I'm going to be doing here, guys, is I'm just going to go around and put a couple of tacks on this. Kind of get it in place where it's going to live. And then then we'll fit our doors and make sure that all of our gaps and everything are good. Ooh, and this is why we don't weld anything solid until we fit the doors. You can see we're tight all the way along the bottom. It's even, but it's really tight, so I am going to have to break my welds loose and just tap everything down a hair. But other than that, I think we're in good shape. It's not a big deal. Well, remember when I said it's easier to cut more off than to put some back on? Turns out I am going to have to put a little back on. I guess I should have fit the doors sooner, but you can see you've got nice even gap here now. It's actually bang on. I'm happy with it. But the way I've had to kind of roll this panel forward has obviously opened this up a whole bunch. So, not the end of the world. Just have to cut a little strip to put in there. Yeah, cut a little off. It's just now it's 2 welds instead of 1. But I will get in there and treat all the inside of that panel at the end anyway. But I'm going to go ahead and just tack that up, and then we'll get the front door on and see where we're at. But I think we'll be okay because we're so nice and even here. I can't see it raising or dropping over the rest of the span because we have a nice even gap. But we'll get to that in a minute. Alright, well here's our first fit. So I've got obviously both doors on. And yes, our gap is nice. It's nice and even all the way along. So in the morning, I'll pull the doors back off and finish welding everything up. Easy breezy. Well, it's the next day here, everybody. I've got our left rocker fully welded. So yeah, I've been at it for a couple hours this morning. So my next step, what I always do with these, I'm going to sand all of this black electrocoat primer off. I personally just like to take it off and start fresh with good epoxy primer, just so that I know what's on there. Just the way I do it. So yeah, I'm going to strip that off. I'm going to probably just do this little bit of body work that needs to be done on this side. Just a little bit of filler over the welds to smooth them out. And then we'll get that fender hung back in place, and then I can turn this thing around and do it all over again on the other side. So the next step in the way I do these is just a skim coat of short strand fiberglass filler. That's Evercoat Everglass that I use over the welds. So this is just going to seal up any potential porosity that we could have missed. And then basically we'll just sand this off and finish it off with a skim coat of regular body filler. All right, a little Duplicolor high temperature engine paint, just what the doctor ordered. Okay, it's just because it's red and I have it. I'm only spotting in this, just this little front bit here, just so we can put the fender on. I could have mixed up a little paint, but this is going to be just fine for what we're doing right here. Oh, here's a little bit of an update. I got our fender back on, which they're really kind of a pain in the butt on these trucks. They're just a pain in the butt. I'll just say that. Yeah, I got the rocker all stripped. I've got some body filler on it. As you can see, that looks all super nasty, but by the time I sand it off, it's just going to be like that. Very little left just to smooth things off. So didn't quite get to it today, It is actually New Year's Eve today, so Happy New Year's to you guys. I know it's probably not New Year when you're watching this. This is probably a week or so after. But yeah, New Year's Eve. I actually have a date to take a married woman out for dinner. So I'm going to knock off a little early. It's only 3 o'clock, but we'll get cleaned up, take my wife out for dinner for New Year. That's about as exciting as we get. And I'll be back, yes, Wednesday, is it today? Tuesday. I'm taking tomorrow off. I'll be back on Thursday. I'll see you guys then. Well, we're into Thursday afternoon here, guys. So yesterday was New Year's Day, so I took yesterday off for some family stuff. But this morning I've got this side finished up, basically ready for primer. You can see our little bits of body work are all done. I just had this door back on for fitting. But you can see this is where we joined the rockers, so it's all pretty straightforward. A little bit of filler smoothing off our welds. Gaps are all super nice. They're bang on. I'm really happy with them. So this side is done. I have turned the truck around. Turned the truck around before lunch so I could get it warmed back up in here, because it's like minus 16 out there today, so she's cold. But I've got this side mostly stripped down, so I am just going to start cutting this rocker off. Now, of course, this was the bad side, but like I pointed out before, this had obviously had some damage, something had hit it, and just caused this to look a lot worse. But I mean, it's basically just the same as the other side. It's just a rusty rocker. The other side, actually, driver's side, the cab corner wasn't even showing rust. It was rusty inside, but you can see our passenger side is a lot worse. And that might actually just be because this has been ripped open for some time. It was getting a lot more dirt and moisture kicked up inside there, but no big deal. So you already saw the other side, so I'm not going to record this side. I'm going to knock this thing out. Hopefully the next time you see it, hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow, we can get this in the booth and get some primer on our rocker panels. So, see you then. So here's a little end of the day check-in for you guys. I obviously didn't record much on this side because we recorded the other side and you've already seen it. But I've got this rocker in place, fitting really nice. I'm going to show you the front. I did this one a little differently. But as you can see, I've got it butt matched, so I just need to fill that up with weld. Same thing in there. It's all just edge to edge. It's the way I like to do it. Move this wiring out of the way to close the door. But as you can see, nice even gap, and that is what's important. So, yep, that's really good. So I didn't take the front fender off of this side. This is the way I do rockers pretty much all the time. If the fenders don't have to come off, I don't take them off. These are a ton of work on these trucks to take off. That one I was replacing, so that's why I did that one. But as you can see here, I've left just a little bit of the original rocker. The metal is all super good up here. But I did slide this underneath, so it's probably only about maybe 3/8 of an inch underneath there, but the front part actually I've got slid in right up to the front, so it's overlapped quite a bit. So I'll make sure that's all, well, I didn't treat it all inside. I painted all inside this pillar as far up as I could with the rust paint like I did on the inside of all the panels. So it's all still kind of wet. It's too late in the day for welding, so I'm not going to do any more today. I did put a couple little tacks on the back just because I had it in place where I liked it. So yeah, in the morning pull that door back off, and then I'll cover up the door openings and finish welding all of this side. Well, here's our second side. Welded up, body worked, basically ready for primer, just a little bit of feathering before masking up for primer. So just figured I'd kind of give you guys a look at the finished body work anyway. So yeah, thin coat of body filler. So what I'm going to do now is fit the doors one last time. I fit them before body filler, so I shouldn't have changed anything, but it's one of those things, you gotta be sure. I did hope to get this in primer today. I don't think it's quite gonna happen. It's about 3:30 on Friday. Yeah. I'll probably get it around to the other end of the shop, get it lined up for the booth, and prime it either tomorrow or it can just wait till Monday. It's not going anywhere. Right. You guys look at our finished gaps. Makes it a little hard to tell when the bottom of the doors are so beat up, but we do have a nice even gap all the way along. Flaking paint and dents kind of throw it off a little bit, but I am pleased with that. So I'm going to move this thing over to the other side of the shop, and I'll bring you guys back when I mask it up for some primer. His doors have to come back off, obviously, but I'll take it around, and either tomorrow or Monday we'll get primer on this thing. So it's Monday morning again. I've been out here for a few hours. I've got our rockers all masked up, ready for some primer, so I'm just going to give these a quick wash with some wax and grease remover, and then get some primer on there. And then I've also kind of prepped up the door for some primer. I've just left it way down here because it won't fit in the booths. So this is that door I showed you that it had the rust starting all around the door handle. So now this is one of those things, you know, the customer said they just wanted this cleaned up, and they understand the truck's, you know, got some rust and dents, so they're not worried about making it perfect. But when it's your shop, you don't want to paint over that stuff. So, you know, there was a dent there, so well, I better just fix that. And then the bottom of the door was actually beat to crap and pretty rusty, so I thought, well, I will clean that up too, because if I just paint over it, it looks like I did a shitty job, even though it's what I was supposed to do. So anyway, I'm gonna mix up some primer and get spraying. Well, we are on to the next day yet again. So I've got our rockers all prepped up. The inners are ready to paint. Now, if all you're doing is the rockers on these, you can paint everything. You paint the rockers, be done, put the doors on. In this case, I'm doing other paint work on the truck, so I'm just going to paint the inners, get the doors on, and then I'll paint the exterior rockers with the rest of the job. So we're just obviously painting the bottom, and I'm just going to blend off my paint up the pillars. So let's go mix up some paint. In this case, we are mixing GMWA 9260. I think Victory Red, if I recall, and that's what GM calls it. So let's get mixing. All right, out of the booth. Our door jambs are painted, our steps are painted. I've had heat on them, so they are okay to throw the doors on. I've already put the rubber seals and some of the trim pieces back on. So, not much to see here for a few minutes. I'm just going to get the doors put back on. Question for you diesel guys though. Now, I'm not into diesel trucks. That's not my thing. I don't care. But usually the Dodges, I freaking hate starting those things in my shop because they stink. Usually the GM diesels are not bad. This truck is brutal when I started in here. It stinks horribly. So, is that just because it's high mileage, or is it the tune? I don't know. Maybe one of you guys that knows about these things will have an opinion on it. So anyway, I'm gonna get the doors spanked on and then hopefully get this thing all prepped up because I plan on having it painted tomorrow. Well, good morning again. So it is super bright and early. Like I've said before that, you know, I called the shop Midnight Paint and Body because I used to be out here at midnight quite a bit. Now I'm more commonly out here at 5 a.m. like it is now. So I've got our truck all prepped up in the booth, ready to mask. So I'm just gonna get this thing masked up. Just the rocker on this side. I'm gonna spot in on the roof. So yeah, gonna get her masked up, washed up, get suited up, and get this thing painted. And here we are, all ready to paint. All masked up, washed and tacked, and ready to spray. So I can't actually finish this. I need to run to the auto parts store, pick up some clear coat hardener, but it's still early, so I think it's still 7:30, so they're not open for another half hour. So I think I'm just gonna slap my first coat of red base coat on here, and then it can sit while I go run to town, pick up some supplies, and then I'll be back to get right back at it. So it's been a couple hours here, guys, so let's go and have a looky. A little spot in on the roof that's nothing special. So the cab corner here, I just blended off the clear. I just need a little bit of a polish there, but that's not much. And there she is, very red. It's nice and warm in here. I've got 2 heat lamps and a little heater going, so this is actually with the fast hardener. This is pretty much cured. So I'm going to unmask this and start doing some assembly. I won't, being this fresh stuff like that goes right on the paint, I won't do until tomorrow, but I should be fine to go ahead and start putting wheel liner and headlight and just some of that kind of stuff in. So I'll get her unmasked, start putting her back together. I'll bring you guys back for a look tomorrow once she's all back assembled and looking like, I was going to say looking like brand new again. This thing's a long way from brand new, but looking solid again. So I'm just finishing up assembly here, guys. We're going to get to that in a minute. So somebody asked me recently, I just thought of this, so I thought I'd throw it in. What do you expect for a life expectancy out of these aftermarket parts? Now, like I said in the beginning of this video, all of these trucks seem to rust out in about 10 years. I've always said, well, I mean, I think they should last 10 years like the first parts did if they're done right. I've had other people say, oh, you know, it's a waste of time, these aftermarket parts are all garbage, you know, blah, blah, blah. So, something I was just thinking I would maybe show you guys. So, my own truck. So, my truck is a 2003. I think I bought this truck in 2014, so it was 10, 11 years old. When I bought it, it was in a really nice shape, but the rockers were toast. They were bad on this truck. But the rest of the truck was really nice, and it was reasonably low mileage, and, you know, I wanted an 8-foot box, so it's been a fantastic truck. So I did rockers on this truck when I bought it, I believe in 2014. I have painted this truck since, but I mean, those are aftermarket rockers, same ones I use on customer vehicles all the time. Let's see, I have a little bit of rust showing in the seam. I mean, it's white. The truck was obviously driven year-round, but the rockers are still perfect. So, you know, at 10 years old, this truck was rotten, or the rockers were rotten. Here it is 10 years later since I've done them, and they're still perfect. So, take that for what it is. Just saying, they're not, if they're done right and they're looked after, the aftermarket parts are just fine. So here we are, guys, all done, washed up, ready for the customer. Kind of dark on this side. We'll walk around the truck here. Rocker panels. Don't know what you can actually see down there. So, like I said in the beginning, this is, or was, my first time doing rockers on this body style, the 14 to 18 GM trucks. They're really not much different than doing rockers on anything else. They're all pretty much the same procedures, but it turned out good. You know, again, the truck has 500,000 kilometers on it, but, you know, in my opinion, well worth, you know, 5-6 grand versus 100 grand for a new one. you know, and it actually makes sense on something like this, just to, you know, fix the rust, make it look decent. You know, there's no point getting into doing a complete paint job and worrying about every little nick and chip, especially in a truck that's used for work. So I think we saved another one. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, go back on my channel. You might find something else that you might enjoy watching or might be helpful to you. Don't go back too far in the channel because the first video is probably pretty bad. But as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. I really hope you come back and check out the next one. We'll see you then.